Well, good morning. Yes, as Reverend Suzette said, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Normally, we have a reading and then we do a silent meditation, but since the whole service is going to be poetry and meditation, we decided to just jump right into it. So I'm going to pray us in to start. So just join me in the light for a moment, taking a deep breath in together and releasing. Just knowing right here, right now, the very presence of the divine, that one life that lives and moves and has its being in all things, is expressing itself and revealing itself and experiencing itself in this service, in each one of us. That each one of us are one with the divine, that we are all necessary and vital organs in that infinite body of God. So I just know that we come together with one accord, with one heart, with one mind, with one life. I declare this time together sacred. I know that it is good and very good. We stand on holy ground, whether we're standing here in person, whether we're in the ethers, we are all one together in one life. And so what I know is that today is a very special and sacred day. I know that Craig, practitioner Craig, is just divinely inspired and divinely guided, that this gift that he has of poetry and wisdom of the ages just permeates through all of his presentation and this poetry reading and this experience. I know that it is indeed an experience that touches each one of us on this day, and that we just take this experience with us into the moments and hours and days ahead. I know that we are all blessed for participating in this today, and that we are all a blessing. I know that Sylvia is just here sharing her amazing talents and her gifts, that Martin is sharing his talents and gifts, and Emma is here doing the hostess with the mostess, and all of us in service today, Victoria, Reverend Suzette, just everybody who's here today is here in service. And I'm so grateful for this time together. So I just declare this good. I declare it sacred and holy, and I just allow it to unfold in perfect divine right order, because I know that this is the activity of God. So I call this forth into being, saying, let it be done, and so it is. So now that we're all prayed in and we're all unified and we're all one, it is my pleasure, my distinct pleasure, to introduce you to Craig Losey. He is a religious science practitioner at the Hilltop Center for Spiritual Living in Fallbrook, where I came from. And Craig was one of my students, actually, my Prac 1 students. And I think I was a practitioner for a year, and when I was co-teaching this class, and he is, I can just tell you that he is such an amazing person. He has such a big heart. He is a powerful manifester. I walked up and saw that gorgeous sparkling white Tesla out there that he manifested in his life, and I have been so blessed to witness just the evolution of his life by being prayer partners with him for the last 14 years, I think. And we have, I don't know, have we missed maybe a couple of weeks? Whether Craig was like in the Philippines, across the world, and, manifesting his lovely bride, Charity. I told Charity, we have been praying for you long before you ever even knew us. But he's just got such a big heart and so much compassion, and his poetry readings are just divine. So I just invite you to immerse yourself and just go with the flow, because this is just a beautiful and lovely and divine experience. So please join me in welcoming Craig Losey.
Thank you, Mary. Wow. Uh, you can tell from her prayer that Mary prays beautifully and powerfully. And I just want to say, if you're in this community, new or existing member, if you haven't prayed with her, that's what we're here for when we gather, is we're here to support you on your journey. So what I did when I used to cry in the back of the church before I became a practitioner is I always got prayer. So that's the most important thing I can tell you today, is take advantage of the people here that are here for you. It'll change your life. It has changed mine. Thank you, Reverend Suzette, for inviting me. Thank you, Sylvia, for accompanying me. She drove up from last Sunday after service, after concert, to rehearse with me. So I'm just very grateful. I'm very grateful to be here, and I consider it an honor. So what we're going to explore is what I call sacred poetry. Explore, experience, embody. Sacred just means connected to God. And so these poems are that way in a few different aspects. First of all, like any kind of spiritual literature that has any power, it's inspired from the divine. In other words, it's just spirit speaking to us. And then there is those illumined souls, those people that are in just their consciousness is on the same level of the divine. There's like this communion. So they bring it forth. And then there's this experience today where actually we will experience what is sacred about these, each of us in our own way. You've probably heard sometimes books like the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran, or all great spiritual works are considered living word. And what does that mean? It means that there's a truth, or there's a power, or there's an essence within something that's written, or in this today spoken, that awakens that very nature of ourselves. In other words, one of the core beliefs that we have as religious sciences is that God is all there is. So we are a part of God, and so we come together to just awaken the fact that we are, to remember that we are, to experience that. So that's the intention today, is you're not here by mistake. These poems, whether it's one poem, one metaphor, one phrase, it will ignite something in your being where you feel perhaps inspired, awakened, you feel beauty, you confirm some truth, you feel it within your own being. So that is the intention today. And so what we'll do is we'll listen as one of my favorite poets from Persia, from the 13th century. His name is Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi, but we call him Rumi here in the West. So Rumi said to listen to these poems with what he called the ear of the heart. And what does he mean? He means, at least this is my interpretation of what he means, is that we have this beautiful organ called our mind that helps us navigate through life so well. It's a faculty of reason and logic, and it works in a very linear fashion, which is super helpful to live your life in. And yet the mind has its limitations. So what Rumi is suggesting is, for now, maybe put your mind out in the parking lot. Let your heart drive you through the experience today of listening. And let the mind be in the back seat. He also said this. He said, listen for presences inside of poems. Let them take you where they will. Follow those private hints and never leave the premises. So one thing I love about poetry is it's up to you to interpret it. It's up to you to see what it evokes in you. But that little phrase or poem itself I've been contemplating, and I'll just share with you what I think it means to me as a tool for you to be with the poems today. Is when he says listen for presences inside of poems, to me that's affirming what I just said, that there's something alive in a poem. So listen for that. Again, through the organ, the ear of your heart. And then he says, let it take you where it will. So to me, that's about relaxing and just going on this internal journey. You don't have any expectation, you just have this kind of openness in your being. And then he says, follow those private hints, which to me suggests if we're all here, a private hint is personal to each person. So we can listen to the same poem, and Mary may have a certain experience, and Charity may have a certain experience, and I may have another experience that's perfect for us today, where we are in our spiritual journey. And then the final line is one I've contemplated a lot, and never leave the premises. Well, what does that mean? And what I've come to, at least in my own contemplation, is it means like just stay present. Because sometimes when we hear truth, we don't want to hear it. It's disturbing. Or it's even confusing. And that's okay. In fact, that's good. When we are confused or disturbed, it means we've come to the limit of our current way of perceiving or experiencing something. So it also means we're on the threshold of like a whole new way of experiencing, of being, of perceiving. So just be present. If something goes beyond you or below you or you don't get it, that's okay. And know that after each poem, there'll be a deliberate period of silence just so you can be with it. You can let it percolate through you, wash over you, just see what it evokes. And if it evokes nothing, that's fine. I know there will be some things that will be stirring in you from some part or several poems. And I do also have for you, I compiled all of these poems in a document. And the reason you don't have them in your hands now is, what would you do? I would be reciting the poem and you'd start looking and reading, and it's just our nature. The mind will take over. And so now all of our attention is going outside of ourselves, when really we will receive the greatest gift by having an internal. So when we're done, if you want one, I'll hand it out to you. And they're really fun because if there's a poem that sort of awakens something in you, then you can look at it and maybe you can contemplate it more whenever you like. That's what has sort of happened to me, is poems just come to me. I'm not a scholar, and I have all kinds of poetry books, but I hardly crack them open. People share them. I hear them, I read them, and if it hits me, then I take it on as my spiritual practice to memorize it, and just to have it be like my little meditation. So I'm just sharing with you my practice. So that's all about the how, thank you. And the what. So I asked Reverend Suzette, what is your theme for this month? So your theme is, life is a sacred expression of spirit. So we could take that and we could run all kinds of different directions with it. And today I thought it might be helpful to look at our lives as human beings, and each of your individual lives. How is your life a sacred expression of spirit? So that's the whole goal of the scope of poems that we're going to look at. And so we're going to start then, if we're sacred expressions of spirit, what is the nature of spirit? So the first couple of poems will explore that. And this poet is also a Persian poet, but he came a century after Rumi. His name is Hafez. Hafez means memorizer. And like both Rumi and Hafez were Sufis. Sufis are a mystical branch of Islam. So they're very embracing of all paths. In fact, that's one of the distinct features of Sufism, is it's looking for and honoring, much like our religious science or science of mind, looking for the common truths in all paths. So in his case, memorizer, he memorized the contents of the whole Quran, the whole holy book of Islam. And we hear of Rumi here, but actually Hafez, in that tradition of Persian literature, which is much broader and deeper than we could have imagined, he's considered the most influential person. And people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's one of the fathers of New Thought, which is what our church has sort of founded our roots into, he was influenced by Hafez, as well as people like Nietzsche and Goethe. So we're going to hear from Hafez first. So this is called, and so now we begin the poetry. Thank you for your patience. This is called With a Love Like That. And I invite you, just close your eyes, take a breath, just relax, enjoy the ride, as Rumi sort of said. Even after all these years, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole world. So just take a breath and let that move through you. And so perhaps the nature of divine is like an unlimited, an infinite, a billion suns, radiating life, giving energy, brilliance, warmth, love. This next poem, also from Hafiz, is entitled Faithful Lover, and he's going to bring the moon into the equation. And when you hear the poet's name in the middle of a poem, it's because these poems are 700 or 800 years old, so they were oral traditions first. So their name in the poem is just their signature on the poem. Last night, the moon came to me with a sweet question. She said, "The sun has been my faithful lover for millions of years. Every time I offer my body to him, brilliant light pours from his heart. Thousands then see my beauty and delight in pointing toward my happiness. Hafez, is it true that it is our destiny to become light itself?" And I replied, "Dear moon, dear moon, now that your love is maturing, we need to sit together close, like this, more often, so I may instruct you how to be who you are." Perhaps we are like the moon. We are these heavenly bodies that receive and absorb, reflect and embody the brilliance, the love, the warmth of the divine, right? The ultimate sun, constantly giving, inclusively giving, right? The sun is shining on all. That's the nature of God, giving always, all the time, everything. If that's the case, then what holds us back? Because obviously that divine essence is within us, and yet there are certain limitations we experience, at least temporarily, until we fully embody, and we are walking around like Hafez or Rumi, just fully alive. And we all have those moments. But what is it that restricts us? And Dr. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of the science of mind and spirit, says it comes down to a belief in separation, that somehow we are separate from God. And that's perhaps like we're like the moon. We need some instruction. We need to be re-educated as to the truth of who we are. The thing, though, that's good about this separation is it creates, in the very essence, in our soul, this deep sense of longing, this loneliness, this desire to be back home, to be with Source, to be with God. And so that's what these next poems are going to explore, this incredible gift, if we can be with it, called longing. Again, Hafez, entitled Absolutely Clear. Don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you as few human or even divine ingredients can. Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God so absolutely clear. So that's the opportunity in longing, is to be present with it. Not to surrender the loneliness, not to deny it, to repress it, to reject it, to medicate it, just to feel it. This next poem is from Rumi. Yay, here's Rumi. It's called Love Dogs. And Allah, of course, in the Islamic tradition, that's the name for God. One night a man was crying, Allah, 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 Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, "So, I've heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response?" The man had no answer for this. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed he saw Hitter, the guide of souls, in a thick green foliage. "Why did you stop praising? Why did you stop?" "Because I never heard anything back." The longing you express is the return message. The grief you call out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. Sometimes it seems hard when something so difficult or challenging, like our longing or our loneliness or any kind of pain that's really an invitation to grow spiritually. It's hard to imagine it to be a blessing. Yet on some other level, it's something our soul deeply desires. Here's another poem from Rumi entitled Some Kiss. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives. The touch of spirit on the body. Seawater begs the pearl to break its shell. And the lily, how passionately it needs some wild darling. At night, I open the window and ask the moon to come and press her face to mine. Breathe into me. Close the language door and open the love window. The moon won't come through the door, only the window. Rumi says that a lot. Language in the mind is the doors, this huge opening that we enter, go to and fro in our life. But love in the heart is this window that will bring us further down the road. So, these poems, the thing about Rumi is interesting is he was a scholar, professor. But it wasn't until he met his spiritual soul companion, we're not talking about a lover, but someone who was like a spiritual teacher for him, and he as well for him. His name was Shams of Tabriz. It wasn't until he met him and then Shams left his life when Rumi became a poet, because he went into this incredible grief of missing this person who was traveling this spiritual path with him. They were on a level of consciousness that was uncommon. So there was a great camaraderie and support in that. And he developed this practice in his grief of sort of turning around a column to his porch outside of his house, which later became what's known as the Mevlani order of whirling dervishes. This is a practice, a spiritual practice that, like anything, practice, it takes a lot of repetition and sincerity to bear the fruit. But what Rumi found, and then he taught those that chose that path, is that he could reach a state of absolute ecstasy and union with that consciousness that's the creative force behind the universe, with God. And so in this poem, you can see he conveys what it's like to be connected, but then being a human being, he also had the experience of disconnection. So this poem is about that. Otherwise, you might wonder, the first few lines might not make sense. It's called "Oh, Sweet Bitterness." In my hallucination, I saw my beloved's flower garden. Beloved or lover, another name for God. In my hallucination, I saw my beloved's flower garden. In my vertigo, in my dizziness, in my drunken haze, whirling and dancing like a spinning wheel, I saw myself as the source of existence. I was there in the beginning, and I was the spirit of love. Now I am sober. There's only the hangover and the memory of love, and only the sorrow. I yearn for happiness. I ask for help. I want mercy. And my love says, look at me and hear me, because I am here just for that. I am your moon and your moonlight too. I am your flower garden and your water too. I have come all this way eager for you, without sandals or shawl. I want you to laugh, to kill all your worries, to love you, to nourish you. Oh, sweet bitterness, I will bring you roses. I, too, have been covered with thorns. So perhaps we can take some solace in the fact that perhaps the divine is desiring us, this union, maybe even more than we, it, in our loneliness. This is also Rumi. If I don't say who it's from, it's Rumi. It's called A Secret to Grasp. Perhaps he's suggesting to slow down and just be with that loneliness. When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of stress and anxiety. If I sit in my own place of patience, that I need flows to me and without pain. From this, I understand that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. There is a great secret here for anyone who can grasp it. So Rumi is essentially inviting us to spiritual practice, to take that longing and to make it constructive even though it's painful. This is another one from Rumi called This is How a Human Being Can Change. There is a worm addicted to eating grape leaves. Suddenly it wakes up. Call it grace, whatever. Something wakes it and it is no longer a worm. It's the entire vineyard. And the orchard too, the fruit, the trunks, a growing wisdom and joy that does not need to devour. I just had this reflection. Perhaps when we're not able to be with that longing, we push ourselves out in this unquenchable thirst into the world. Here's what he says about that too. Find your place and close your eyes so your heart can start to see. When you give up being self-absorbed, your being becomes a great community. This next poem, also Rumi, is as if Spirit or God or the divine is speaking to us or the poet. It's called Empty. When you're with everyone but me, you're with no one. When you're with no one but me, you're with everyone. Instead of being with everyone, be everyone. When you become that many, you are nothing, empty. I hope you're getting enough time to contemplate. If for some way you feel I'm rushing through them, just raise your hand. So, perhaps the truth about who we are as sacred expressions of the one living Spirit is a little closer at hand than we acknowledge. These next few poems explore that. This is called The Road Home, and if you haven't guessed already, it's by Rumi. An ant hurries along a threshing floor with its grain of wheat, moving between huge stacks of wheat, not knowing the abundance all around. It thinks its one grain is all there is to love. So we too choose a tiny seed to be devoted to this body, one path, one teacher. Look farther and wider. The essence inside of every human being can see. And what that essence eye sees, the being becomes. Solomon, Saturn, the ocean pours through a jar. And you might say it swims inside the fish. This mystery gives peace to your longing and makes the road home, home. The journey, not the destination, right? How we show up in each moment. That's what it's about. This starts with a biblical quote. It's called Be Melting Snow, also by Rumi. Lo, I am with you always means when you're looking for God, God is in the look of your eye, in the thought of looking. nearer to you than yourself or things that have happened to you. There's no need to go outside. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. A white flower grows in quietness. Let your tongue become that flower. This is another Rumi entitled The Truth of a Friend. The Friend. And the friend is just another name for God. One thing that's admirable in my mind about Islam is they have 99 names for God. I'm sure there's an infinite number. So friend is a name for God. Would you like to have revealed to you the truth of the friend? Leave the rind and descend into the pith. Fold within fold, the beloved drowns in its own being. This world is drenched with that drowning. Imagining is like feeling your way in a dark alley or washing your eyes with blood. You are the truth from foot to brow. Now, what else would you like to know? That's one of those poems that's taken me several times to wrap my head around, or my heart. So, what I'm hearing though at the end of that poem is we are the truth, we are the divine. And there's nothing we can do to stop that. I suppose we could delay it, but the unique, individualized, beautiful, sacred expression that we each are is inevitably being revealed. And so these last two poems explore that. First with Hafez in a very powerful manner. It's one of my favorites. It's called Light Will Split You Open. Light will someday split you open. Even if your life is now a cage. For a divine seed, the crown of destiny lies hidden and sown on some ancient, fertile plain you hold title to. Love will surely bust you wide open into an unfettered, blooming new galaxy. Even if your mind is now a spoiled mule, life-giving radiance will come. The friend's gratuity will come. Look again within yourself, for I know you were once the elegant host to all the marvels of creation. From a sacred crevice in your body, a bow rises up each night and shoots your soul into God. Behold, the beautiful, drunk, singing one. From the lunar vantage point of love, he is conducting the affairs of the whole universe while throwing wild parties in a treehouse on a limb in your heart. I hope I'm not commenting too much. I just have to say, when I hear that poem, I am so happy to hear of a beautiful drunk singing one. Enjoy your life. Be in joy. Be drunk with spirit. Be drunk with enthusiasm and gratitude. Oh my gosh. And so this one is from Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart was a 13th century German monk. He lived at the same time as Rumi. And what I love about this poem is, like, he is saying the exact same thing as Hafez said in that last poem, but in his own unique way. It's called To See as God Sees. It is your destiny to see as God sees. To know as God knows. To feel as God feels. How is this possible? How? Because divine love cannot defy its very self. Divine love will be eternally true to its own being. And its being is giving all that it can at the perfect moment. And the greatest gift God can give is his own experience. Every creature, every object, every man, woman, and child has a soul. And it is the destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. So let's just breathe. When you breathe, you're taking in the very life of spirit. And there's no limit to how much you can breathe. And when you exhale, you're giving back. And so let's just know that spirit is revealing itself today to each of us through these poems. And these poems just continue to work their wondrous ways through us, through this day, through this week. That something has been awakened for which we give thanks and which brings us joy. And that we have perhaps more desire and commitment to allowing whatever is unpleasant in our life to teach us, to allow loneliness to encourage us to practice and to treat ourselves and those around us just as the divine does, with this infinite heart of grace and love. And so it is.